Today we're taking a look at these NFL matches, which are happening on Saturday, December 24, 2022, and giving you match breakdowns, betting tips and predictions in general on these games. Welcome back to High Stakes. Before we dive into our video, don't forget to subscribe and push that notification bell to get notified as soon as we release these sport prediction videos. Also, check out our perks and join the High Stakes membership. Joining the High Stakes membership is easy, is cheap, but it will help a lot in the growth process of this channel. Plus check out our Patreon in the link down below if you want access for our premium picks. Our Patreon is a way for us to help you improve your chances of making more money. Multiple plans are available for each and every one of you. Stop wasting hours of your time searching for bad betting predictions that ends up costing you a lot of time and money. Join the High Stakes Patreon now and get the best betting picks. Going back to our video, we will give you 2 betting picks for each game, a team pick and a total pick based on facts and detailed explanation. Make sure to watch our videos till the end so you don't miss any of our picks. One more thing before we start, check out our new channel High Stakes Props and Parlays, where you can find our player props and parlay picks predictions. You will find the link in the description and comments section below. Detroit Lions vs Carolina Panthers. The Detroit Lions come into this game with a record of 7-7 this season. The last time they took the field, the Lions took on the Jets and notched a win by a score of 20-17. Jared Goff went 23-38 with 252 yards passing and 1 touchdown. He had a quarterback rate of 88.9 and ended the contest without throwing a pick. Amon-Ra St. Brown had an average of 10.9 yards per catch by tallying 76 yards on 7 catches. DeAndre Swift was the rushing leader for the Lions with 8 attempts for 52 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt. When all was said and done, they ran 66 plays which gave them a total of 359 yards. The Detroit Lions ran the ball 28 times and totaled 107 yards, which had them averaging 3.8 yards per carry. On the ground, the Lions conceded 50 yards on 22 attempts, which is an average of 2.3 yards per run surrendered. Detroit allowed 18 pass completions on 35 attempts for a total of 287 yards and a completion rate of 51.4%. The Panthers head into this matchup 5-9 for this season. The last time they stepped on the gridiron, the Panthers walked away with a loss by a score of 24-16 against the Steelers. Sam Darnold, 1 TD, ended the contest with 225 yards on 14 23rds passing, while his QB rate was 108.1. He didn't toss any interceptions, and his average yards per attempt was 9.8 yards. DJ Moore was one of the featured targets for the Panthers, grabbing 5 balls for 73 yards, 14.6 yards per catch. Chuba Hubbard ran the ball 4 times for 10 yards, walking away from the contest with 2.5 yards per attempt for Carolina. The Panthers finished the game with 209 yards while running 43 plays, 4.9 yards per play. Carolina ran the football for 1.3 yards per carry, finishing with 21 yards on 16 carries. Carolina gave up 45 attempts on the ground for 156 yards, 3.5 yards per rush. The Panthers' passing defense conceded a completion rate of 77.3%, relinquishing 169 yards on 17 out of 22 passing. Both Detroit and Carolina desperately need a win in Week 16. The Lions are chasing the 7-6-1 Washington Commanders for the final wild card spot in the NFC, while the Panthers are only 1 game behind the NFC South leading Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hereof, I'm expecting to see a dramatic battle down the stretch when the Lions face off against the Panthers. The Lions are tied with Tampa Bay and Dallas for the fewest sacks allowed in 2022, 19. Their offensive line will make the difference and allow Jared Goff to find his teammates when it matters the most. Also, I'm expecting the Lions to run the ball efficiently after what I saw in that Steelers vs Panthers clash in Week 15. On the other side of the ball, the Lions' run D will try to extend its dominance. Detroit has only surrendered 167 rushing yards over its last 3 contests. Our first pick is Detroit Lions minus 2.5 points. I could easily see Detroit scoring 27+ points in this game with Carolina's defense still rebuilding. J.C. Horn's availability should be taken into account, but I believe he will play. I expect Carolina to do a better job in the ground game, and the Lions will depend on their offense to carry them. The Panthers totaled 40 points against the Steelers last week, and those are two teams with notable offensive inefficiencies. They totaled 54 points with the Seahawks the week before last. The Seahawks are similar to the Lions with a weak defense, and I expect a similar result this week for Carolina when they play Detroit. Our second pick is over 43.5 points. Seattle Seahawks vs Kansas City Chiefs. The Seattle Seahawks step onto the field holding a record of 7-7 this year. In their last game, the Seahawks faced the 49ers and walked away from this one with a loss by a score of 21-13. Kenneth Walker III led the offense in rushing for the Seahawks, with 12 attempts for 47 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. Tyler Lockett left with an average of 9.7 yards per catch by notching 68 yards on 7 receptions. Geno Smith went 31-44 with 238 yards passing and 1 TD. He had a QB rate of 90.9 and finished the contest with no picks. On the ground, the Seahawks gave up 170 yards on 34 tries, which averages out to 5.0 yards per run surrendered. Seattle conceded 17 pass completions on 26 attempts for a total of 211 yards and a completion percentage of 65.4%. In the game, they ran 61 plays which totaled 277 yards. The Seattle Seahawks ended up rushing 14 different times and tallied 70 yards, earning them an average of 5.0 yards per attempt. The Chiefs come into this matchup with a record of 11-3 for this season. In their last game, the Chiefs got the victory with a final of 30-24 when they faced the Texans. Isaiah Pacheco ran the football 15 times for 86 yards, ending the contest with 5.7 yards per carry for Kansas City. Travis Kelce was one of the featured targets for the Chiefs, grabbing 10 footballs for 105 yards, 10.5 yards per reception. Patrick Mahomes, 2 TDs, ended the game with 336 yards on 36 41st passing, while his QB rating was 117.1. He didn't throw any picks, and his YA was 8.2 yards. Kansas City relinquished 28 rush attempts for 94 yards, 3.4 yards per rush. The Chiefs' pass defense conceded a completion percentage of 48.3%, surrendering 125 yards on 14 out of 29 passing. The Chiefs ended up finishing with 502 yards, while they ran 76 plays, 6.6 yards per play. Kansas City ran the ball for 5.7 yards per attempt, finishing with 189 yards on 33 attempts. The Seahawks have trended in the wrong direction of late, with 4 losses in 5 games, turning their 6-3 start into a 7-7 mark with 3 weeks to go in the regular season. Seattle is dealing with injury issues and that could impact the offense. Fortunately, they face a Kansas City team that made the Texans and Broncos look like competent NFL offenses in the last couple of weeks. Now, I don't harbor much hope that the Seahawks can win this game based on recent struggles, but the fact remains that it's hard to back the Chiefs given their struggles against the number this year. Kansas City is a dismal 3-10-1 Austrian shillings this season, and that includes a 0-6-1 mark in their last 7 games. This could be the turnaround for them, but I'm fading giving double-digit points. If you're playing straight up, Kansas City gets the nod, but with a line, take Seattle and the points. Our first pick is Seattle Seahawks plus 10 points. Both Seattle and Kansas City are very strong on offense, while both are giving up too many points on defense. The total has finished over in each of the last 5 games played between Seattle and Kansas City. Seattle has seen the total finish over in 5 of its last 6 games played on the road. The Seahawks are 29th in points allowed at 25.4 per game, and Kansas City is first in points scored at 29.6 points per game. Our second pick is to take the over, 49.5 points. New Orleans Saints vs Cleveland Browns. The New Orleans Saints head into this matchup 5-9 this season. In their last contest, the Saints played against the Falcons and went home with a win by a final score of 21-18. Andy Dalton connected on 11/17 with 151 yards through the air and 2 TDs. He had a quarterback rating of 132.2 and finished the game with no picks. Alvin Kamara was the rushing leader for the Saints with 21 carries for 91 yards, 4.3 yards per attempt. Rashid Shaheed left with an average of 31.7 yards per reception by totaling 95 yards on 3 receptions. The New Orleans Saints ended up running the ball 34 different times and accrued 134 yards, which had them averaging 3.9 yards per carry. In all, they tallied 55 plays which totaled 348 yards. New Orleans surrendered 13 pass completions on 26 attempts for a total of 89 yards and a completion percentage of 50.0%. When it came to stopping the run, the Saints conceded 231 yards on 39 tries, which is an average of 5.9 yards per rush allowed. The Browns come into this game with a record of 6-8 for this season. The last time they stepped on the gridiron, the Browns went home victorious with a score of 13-3 when they played the Ravens. Deshaun Watson, 1 touchdown, finished the contest with 161 yards on 18 28s through the air, while his quarterback rating was 91.5. He didn't toss any picks, and his average yards per pass attempt was 5.8 yards. Nick Chubb ran the football 21 times for 99 yards, ending the game with 4.7 yards per carry for Cleveland. Amari Cooper was the best receiver for the Browns, snagging 4 footballs for 58 yards, 14.5 yards per catch. Cleveland rushed the ball for 4.3 yards per attempt, finishing the contest with 143 yards on 33 carries. The Browns finished the contest with 283 yards, while they ran 64 plays, 4.4 yards per play. The Browns' pass defense conceded a completion rate of 56.7%, relinquishing 126 yards on 17 for 30 passing. Cleveland relinquished 28 run attempts for 198 yards, 7.1 yards per carry. New Orleans will need to be at its best to win in Cleveland. The Browns are rounding into form and can always depend on running back Nick Chubb, 1,252 rush yards and 12 TDs on offense, and Garrett, 13.5 sacks on defense. Last week, New Orleans gave up 231 rushing yards and will have its hands full against Chubb in a game that's expected to be cold and windy. Given the weather conditions, the Saints will have to rely on the ground game too. Alvin Kamara is still a good back, but is he capable of carrying the offensive load without a complementary passing game if Dalton and Hill can't throw the ball much? The Browns are surrendering 133.1 rushing yards per game, but will be able to rally to the football all game if New Orleans can't pass the ball. Our first pick is Cleveland -3 points. The season is all but over for Cleveland, but they are still playing with pride. It was a good win against what was a hobbled Ravens team, and the final score of the Bengals game is a little misleading. The Browns have the stronger ground attack, and we just saw the Falcons gash New Orleans for over 230 yards on the ground alone. Cleveland will look to continue to exploit that weakness. The Saints will have trouble moving the ball through the air, given the vicious weather conditions and the trouser-ripping winds. While Hill has proven to be effective, the Saints haven't used him enough to trust that he will continue to get involved in the running game. This will be a messy, bone-chilling game, and that is exactly how the Browns wanted. Play Cleveland at home. Our second pick is Cleveland -2.5 points.